Hello, everyone, and welcome to Grid Tonight, your weekly motorsports news program. I'm Adam Lemerise, and with me, as always, is Kobe Lambeth from the Podium Finish. And a special shout out to our Patreon supporters, Colin, Mark, Deshelle, and Robin. Thank you for investing in Grid Network. Link to our Patreon in the video description below. And please feel free to comment in the chat room below and ask any questions. Tonight, we'll preview one of the most important crown jewels in the world of motorsports. Plus, Matt White is here with a grid history update and a special announcement about our sports car coverage here at Grid Network. However, we have some breaking news that happened right before we came on the air. NASCAR Camping World Truck Series driver Carson Hocevar is expected to race Saturday at Sonoma Raceway in California. Despite getting injured at Gateway when he got turned around by Derek Kraus and clobbered by Tyler Hill. Hocevar will attempt the race, and if it becomes too big of a challenge for him, Nice Motorsports will have NASCAR Cup Series driver Daniel Suarez as a standby. As long as Hocevar starts the race, he'll earn championship points, even if Suarez is the one finishing the race. Now, we'll start our special preview of the race that takes place at Circuit de la Sarthe in France, the 2022 24 Hours of Le Mans.
Yeah, it's so exciting that the 24 Hours of Le Mans is back this year in the month of June. This traditional date really feels great. And I want to give a hello to Daniel Mobley watching. Good evening to you, Daniel. We really appreciate you for watching Grid Tonight this evening. And this is the 90th running of the famous twice around the clock French Endurance Classic, the 24 Hours of Le Mans at Circuit de la Sarthe. A strong 62 car field this year across four classes, although many people are highly anticipating next year's 91st running, which is also the 100-year anniversary of this crown jewel race. The first Le Mans took place all the way back in the year 1923. Next year is going to be very special because we'll be entering a new era of prototype racing. More Le Mans hypercars joining the grid, and Le Mans Daytona Hybrid will debut the LMH and LMDH prototypes, both eligible for the FIA World Endurance Championship and the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. And before we look at this year's grid, we have some LMDH news to share, starting with Lamborghini, who will be partnering with Ligier Automotive to build their new prototype. They'll debut in the year 2024. Ligier will use its LMP2 chassis and apply to manufacturer specific bodywork so people will be able to look and say, that's a Lamborghini LMDH prototype. Lamborghini is expected to enter their cars in both WC and IMSA competition in 2024. And the graphic you see on the screen, courtesy of Ligier Automotive. Also, we have a big announcement tomorrow from General Motors. Cadillac is expected to unveil their LMDH car that will start racing next year in the WC and IMSA with a factory back program fielded by Chip Ganassi Racing. The graphic right there, courtesy of Cadillac, and lots of people are anxiously anticipating a new Cadillac prototype, especially after seeing shots of Porsche's LMDH car taking part in European testing. Porsche is expected to start its testing program here in the United States with Team Penske soon, photo courtesy of Porsche Motorsport. But most recently, BMW unveiled their LMDH prototype that'll start off racing in IMSA full time next year with longtime BMW partner Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing, better known as Team RLL in sports car racing. The BMW M Hybrid V8 utilizing the Dallara chassis. They'll also use the 4-liter twin turbo V8 engine from their traditional DTM program before it became another GT3 series. And a photo of the BMW M Hybrid V8 LMDH prototype right here, courtesy of BMW Motorsport. Adam, in your opinion, how did the designers do with the new BMW LMDH prototype?
Kobe, it looks sleek, it looks elegant, looks awesome. It looks fabulous, fantastic. There's so many words that I could put. And let our viewers know, uh, back in the day, BMW raced IMSA when it was known as the GTP series, and it and some of the drivers that raced the car were Davy Jones from the United States, late great John Andretti, David Hobbs, who we all know is also a fabulous broadcaster, and former F1 driver John Watson. So this isn't the first time BMW has raced in IMSA. I can't wait to see how this car does next year in IMSA. I can't wait to find out who the sponsors are going to be, plus the drivers. We are entering a brand new golden age of sports car racing, and if this doesn't get your energy up for next year, I don't know what does. But next year's sports cars in IMSA and the FIA World Endurance Championship are going to look awesome on track.
Totally agree with you, Adam. You took the words right out of my mouth. I couldn't have said it better. We're definitely entering a really exciting time for sports car racing, not just here in the United States and IMSA, but around the world in the FIA World Endurance Championship. I think it's certainly going to be a great time to be into sports car racing because this has so much potential to explode and be something that people have been dreaming of years. Finally, you can put a prototype on a plane here in the United States, and you can fly it and race it at Le Mans. You can race at Spa, Monza, all of those places in the World Endurance Championship. And if you're in the World Endurance Championship running full time, you can put one of those Toyota Gazoo racing prototypes. And next year, you can be racing on the high banks of Daytona against the likes of Wayne Taylor Racing, Action Express, all of the IMSA regulars, and Meyer Shank Racing as well. A really exciting time. And got a comment right here from Daniel Mobley saying that the BMW LMDH is a beautiful car, and you're looking forward to seeing the reveal of the Cadillac. Yeah, Cadillac is going to be revealing their prototype tomorrow. Really excited to see what type of design they have going for them. But as for the design of the BMW M Hybrid V8, I think they did a fantastic job designing this car. And as you mentioned, I'm looking forward to learning more details about this program. I thought it was really interesting that they're planning to use their old DTM engine, and I know that engine sounded really good when DTM had its traditional cars that they were using before they switched to GT3. So I'm sure it looks good. I'm sure it's going to sound good as well. But looks are one thing. I think the big question is how is it going to race? And based on how mean and nasty that car is looking, I'm sure BMW is going to give the Rahal team a lot to work with. And you also mentioned, Adam, the drivers that are going to have next year. We don't know who's going to be driving that prototype next year, but I have a feeling you probably won't look no further than the BMW drivers who have been with the team, like let's say a John Edwards. Maybe we see Graham Rahal get back on a prototype and run the Rolex 24 next year. It's been a while since Graham has been on a prototype, and I'm sure driving a high downforce, high horsepower prototype with hybrid power. I'm sure that's going to be very exciting for a lot of race car drivers to try to get in a seat, whether you're in an LMDH or an LMH. And now looking at this year's field, 5 cars competed in the Le Mans Hypercar class, and Alpine, 2 Toyotas, and 2 Glickenhaus entries. Alpine won the season opener at Sebring, and the number 7 Toyota got the win at Spa. Of course, Toyota Gazoo Racing enters the race weekend as the heavy favorites to win, but their 2022 season hasn't put them in the best position championship-wise. At Sebring, the number 7 Toyota retired from the race when Jose Maria Lopez hit tire barriers and flipped over on its roof, but the number 8 Toyota finished second. Then roles reversed at Spa with the number 7 Toyota winning while the number 8 didn't finish the race. This put both Toyota Gazoo Race and LMH prototypes behind in the World Endurance Championship. Alpine's been consistent, finishing first and second. Andre Negrel, Matthew Vaxiviere, and Nicolas Lapierre leading the championship by 18 points entering Le Mans. It's not Toyota who's second in the championship. It's actually a pair of French drivers from Glickenhaus, Olivier Plat and Ramon Dumas. Then you get to the number 8 Toyota in third, 30 points back, and the number 7 Toyota in fourth, 32 points back to start off this run to the championship after Le Mans. So Adam, I just looked at the point standings earlier this week, and I was actually really shocked to see how far down Toyota is compared to the Glickenhaus and the Alpine. So if you're Toyota right now, would you view Le Mans as a way to get your season headed in the right direction championship wise, or is all the focus just on winning the race because it's Le Mans instead of thinking about the big picture?
Well, Kobe, it's kind of surprising to see that Toyota Racing is down in the FIA World Endurance Championship point standings. Normally, we would see them up there at the top, but you have two Glickenhaus cars, and those Glickenhaus cars this weekend at Le Mans are going to be fast, and they have some incredible, talented drivers in both of those cars. So, yeah, Toyota Gazoo Race is the heavy favorite, and you have some experience in the number 7 car. You've got you you have Mike Conway, Jose Maria Lopez from Argentina, and Kamura Kobayashi. Team Glickenhaus, well, in the number 708, they have Olivier Pla, Romain Dumas, and Pippo Durrani. You know, it is an endurance race. So I think this Le Mans hypercar class is going to be a class to watch. Could Toyota sweep first and second positions, or could Glickenhaus somehow steal the win away? If I'm Team Toyota, you mentioned Kobe. They flipped over. The number 7 car flipped over at the 1,000 mile C ring, and the number 8 car finished second. If Toyota wants to get back in the championship fight, they're going to have to get around the Glickenhaus cars. But like I said, those Glickenhaus cars are fast, so it may be a tough time for Toyota to win the 2022 24 Hours of Le Mans.
You mentioned Toyota, you're making Glickenhaus, but don't forget the three drivers who are controlling the championship right now in the Alpine, Andre Negrel, Matthew Vaxiviere, and Nicholas Lapierre. I know Alpine's been concerned about being down on the straight lines this weekend at Le Mans, and when you think of the Circuit de la Sarre track, this is not a track where you have issues with straight line speed because you had the Mulsanne straight, and if you're down on straight line speed going down the Mulsanne, basically that's going to kill your entire lap at Le Mans. You're not going to be competitive. But the good thing about the 24 hours Le Mans is 24 hours long, and plus all outright pace won't really matter as much. So, I mean, it does matter, but if Alpine is able to, just be quick enough to stay in the fight, they can certainly keep up their consistency, finishing first and second to start off the season. And at the end of the day, consistency might be what potentially wins the Alpine the championship. But I do think that Toyota, especially with more points on the line at Le Mans, I think they can certainly get back in the fight here and take the fight to Alpine. And it's really interesting when you come to crown jewel races. Yes, you want to do well enough to get back into the championship, but at the same time, you don't really. I'm not really sure how many teams are thinking championship wise right now because they want to go out there and they want to win the 24 hours Le Mans. Even drivers who have won Le Mans before, because you don't get tired of winning these races. Every time you win, it just makes you hungrier for more and more. And I'm sure Toyota Gazoo Racing wants to stand at the top step of the podium again at Circuit de la Sarre. And our biggest class is LMP2, 27 cars with teams and drivers from all over the world. 8-time FIA World Rally Champion Sebastian Ogier making his Le Mans debut in front of his hometown crowd. Lots of success in off-road rally racing, but the switch to endurance racing has been a big struggle for Ogier. His team is currently stuck way down in 12th in the driver standings. Ogier is still trying to find his way in prototypes and improve his pace. Are you surprised that Sebastian Ogier's had a tough transition from rally to sports cars?
Yes, I am, Kobe. And Sebastian Ogier has had in the FIA World Rally Championship, you race on different surfaces. You have gravel, you have asphalt, you have gravel, asphalt, you, you, you have dirt. I mean, they race on different surfaces at each event. But here in sports car racing, it's completely different. It's an asphalt track. Yeah. And it'll be cool to see Sebastian Ogier racing in his home country. If you remember the MotoGP race they had at Le Mans, Fabio Quartararo ran in front of his home country fans as well. Fortunately, he didn't do really good. Well, maybe Sebastian Ogier can turn that around. But you know, Kobe, this is a 24-hour race. So his team is going to have to, they could start off very weak, but they could turn it around because it's one of the longest endurance races of the year. Do we have a comment also from Daniel? He says, with the 24 hours, it'll make sleeping this weekend difficult. Yeah, it will be. Also glad I have 4 TVs. Daniel, you're a trooper. So, our colleague is called Daniel. If you want a really cool perspective on the 24 hours of Le Mans, you can go to our colleague Joshua Birch's YouTube channel, as he'll be providing a watch along for all 24 hours over there in England. So it can be interesting to see how Sebastian Ogier does. We have a comment from Humperdinck. He says, yeah, I'm very surprised with Ogier's lack of pace. I've always considered rally drivers the greatest in the world. Yeah, Humperdinck, I gotta agree with you. It'll be interesting to see how Sebastian Ogier does in front of his home country fans this weekend at Le Mans.
And something else about Ogier, I think he's really feeling a lot of pressure because this year is supposed to be a year of learning prototype races because who does he want to impress? He wants to impress Toyota Gazoo Racing because Sebastian Ogier's ultimate goal is to be able to contend for the 24 hours of Le Mans outright to try to get the overall crown. Yes, an LMP2 class victory would be great, but that's not what he wants. He wants to win he wants to win the race overall. And the only way he'd be able to do that if he's able to get a seat in LMH or an LMDH next year at Le Mans or the years after that. And Sebastian Ogier knows that he really has to pick up the pace because Toyota Gazoo Racing is not going to put him in one of their prototypes if he doesn't have the pace to be there. If he's at least in the ballpark, maybe they'll bring in 2 more experienced sports car veterans so to complement Ogier in a Toyota LMH prototype. But if Ogier is not able to show that he has the pace to be competitive, if he's like well off the pace in in LMDH, LMH, then I'm not sure where that would leave Sebastian Ogier, or maybe Toyota will just show their appreciation for everything he accomplished in motorsports, and it won't matter how he does in LMP2. They'll enter a third Toyota prototype and put him in there and try to find him some great co-drivers. But looking at this from a business perspective, I feel like Sebastian Ogier might be feeling a lot of pressure that he has to show improvement in LMP2 if he wants to move up to the top category and go for the overall win next year and the years ahead. And also and making their return to Le Mans for the first time in decades, Team Penske. The Penske LMP2 program will come to an end as they ramp up their testing program ahead of fielding Porsche LMDH prototypes in the WC and IMSA next year. However, Penske was able to better prepare themselves for a potential class victory this year at Le Mans by running Sebring and Spa to get familiar with the entire World Endurance Championship environment. And looking at Team Penske so far in practice just to start the week, It seems like they're right in the middle of the pack right now. They're not up there with all the front runners, but this is a long 24-hour race. Anything can happen, and sometimes it's not necessarily the fastest car who will win the 24 hours of Le Mans. So, Adam, here's my question for you: Was it a good call by Team Penske to end their LMP2 program halfway through the season to focus on the Porsche LMDH?
Yeah, Kobe, I believe it was. And like I said, we're going into a new age of sports car racing. So I think it was smart for Team Penske to end their LMP2 program. And it's going to be, how cool is it going to be to see Team Penske down the Mulsanne Straight this year at the 24 Hours of Le Mans? Like you said, we haven't seen Team Penske compete in this race in a long, long time. And their drivers at Team Penske, well, they have just a few years of experience running in sports cars. You have Dane Cameron, Emmanuel Collard, and and Felipe Nasr. So those three have experience running in sports cars. So yeah, Kobe, you mentioned that they're in the middle of the pack, but I wouldn't count. But I wouldn't count out Team Penske at least for a podium. It's a 24-hour race, so anything can happen over there at Circuit de la Sarre.
Yeah. Anything can happen at Circuit de la Sarthe, and you're right, Adam. No matter what form of motorsport it is, you can't count out Team Penske at all because it seems like even when they're down, they're always in the thick of the fight. I know they haven't really been in the thick of it so far in their first two World Endurance Championship races at Sebring Spa. But I truly believe with the 24 Hours of Le Mans, since this is such a unique race, a unique long race, and there's a lot of factors that go into play when it comes to winning this race. And Team Penske, they've been winners at every single level of motorsport, so I don't see how this will be any different. But getting back to the question, I think it's really smart by Roger Penske to make the call to end this LMP2 program early. We learned all we needed to learn for next year and the years ahead in the World Endurance Championship and how it works in over in Europe. So now they can put their full focus on getting the LMDH Porsches ready to go next year. And some of the early season favorites and possible contenders for the win at Le Mans have to be WRT, United Autosports, Jota, and possibly Prima. The WRT trio, Rene Rast, Robin Frange, and Sean Gillel lead the LMP2 standings by 6 points over a pair of United Sports drivers, Oliver Jarvis and Josh Pearson. And speaking of Pearson, he's set to make history and become the youngest driver to ever race at Le Mans at only 16 years old, breaking Matt McMurray's record. And comment right here from Daniel Miller saying that LMDH is very expensive. So I do think it's a smart move. Yes, very expensive, and you want to make sure that you're as prepared as you possibly can be because I know we're about to be halfway through 2022 right now, but it'll be January 2023 before you know it because time is moving very fast, and those LMDH Porsches will make their race debuts as of right now in the Rolex 24 at Daytona next January. But the World Endurance Championship is offering any teams who want to get some race experience this by the end of this year. You could potentially enter any one of the final three rounds as an unclassified entry. So you could potentially race in the 6 hours of Monza, the 6 hours of Fuji, or the 8 hours of Bahrain. It'll be interesting to see if any LMDH manufacturer decides to take part in those events. So, Adam, based on those teams I mentioned, do you think they're the teams to beat this weekend at Le Mans, or does the unpredictability of the 24-hour race mean it's really anyone's game?
It's anyone's game, Kobe. It's you could have you could have a very you could have a very bad car to start out, but you got a long time to but you got a long time, you know, to get your car right to compete for the win. Um, this this out this class, I think, is another class you're going to have to watch. There's so much good. There's so much good talent there, like you mentioned, from all over the world. So it's a 24-hour race. So to me, it's anybody's guess.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything you said. But I will say, looking at WRT, United Auto Sports, Jota, Prim, all those teams, 13 Penske in there as well. I think any of those teams can possibly win. But this is Le Mans. Anything that can happen will happen, as you like to say all the time, Adam. So we could see one of those teams that we haven't even mentioned so far potentially get up there and take the fight to the others for the win. Let's say like Cool Racing, Graph Racing, Algarve Pro Racing, Panis Racing. Any of those teams could really get up there and win the LMP2 class in this year's running of the 24 hours of Le Mans. And now it's leaving the prototypes and looking at the GTs. We have 7 cars in the GTE Pro class, potentially the last year of all pro GT racing at Le Mans, unless they find 2 manufacturers and a minimum of 4 cars to compete. GT3 spec cars are expected to debut at Le Mans 2024, with 2023 set to be the swan song season for GTE spec machinery. So this very well could be the final 24-hour race in France for the Ferraris, Porsches, and Corvette Racing's 2 C8Rs. With the new GT format widely expected to have Pro-Am driver lineups only, this could be the end of the factory Corvette racing team in this event, but they could still fill Corvette GT3 cars, which they are building in a new era through customer teams. If this is Corvette Racing's final dance in its current form in the 24 Hours of Le Mans, what a ride! What a ride it's been for the American muscle, right?
Yep, it sure has, Kobe. I mean, to me, think about Corvette racing and Le Mans. They go together. I mean, like apple pie and vanilla ice cream. Uh, but I'll give the viewers a list of some of the drivers that have won at Le Mans. Johnny O'Connell, Scott Pruitt. Scott Pruitt's won in everything from IMSA to the SCCA Trans Am to IndyCar. And yes, he did compete for Rookie of the Year in NASCAR a few years back. Antonio Garcia, Olivier Beretta, Oliver Gavin, Jan Magnussen. His last name sounds familiar. He's the father of Kevin Magnussen in F1. So, if this is Corvette Racing Swan Song at Le Mans, boy oh boy, has it been a ride for them. It To me, it wouldn't be the same without Corvette Racing competing at Le Mans. A lot of Americans tune in to see how Corvette Racing does. They're always they've been so strong in sports car racing all over the world. And if this is a swan song, well, hopefully they'll come out on top one last time.
Yeah, this very well could be one last time for the Corvette Racing Squad at Le Mans in its current form as a factory organization. And if this year is the last one, like wow, Corvette, as you mentioned, Adam, all of those drivers who have raced for Corvette Racing at Le Mans over the years, so many great runs, class victories at Le Mans, lots of things for Corvette to be proud of. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens to Corvette Racing. I know General Motors is still going to have a factory presence at Le Mans in the future because they have the new Cadillac LMDH prototypes coming on board with Chip Ganassi Racing. Going to be having the factory program. I'm sure we're also going to see some other Cadillacs sticking around, probably with Action Express Racing. See what they do with JDC Miller Motorsports in the States. As well, I know Hendrick Motorsports has potentially been looking to have a greater presence in sports cars. So with Hendrick possibly enter a Cadillac, I know Hendrick Motorsports is going to be running the NASCAR Next Gen car in the 24 Hours of Le Mans next year as a garage 56 entry. So it's really going to be interesting to see what happens with Corvette Racing's future. I'm sure they're certainly going to be supporting any other customer teams that they'll have in the future, and that'll be new for Corvette because they're used to having the big factory operation filled in those 2 cars that they you certainly cannot miss at all. And now we have Supercars standout Shane Van Gisbergen making his Le Mans debut, driving the number 74 Riley Motorsports Ferrari 488 GTE with co-drivers Felipe Fraga and Sam Bird. SVG is one of the top drivers in Australia, but he'll be pretty busy against some of the best drivers in the world in GTE Pro. James Collado, Alessandro Perguidi, Jordan Taylor, Nick Tandy, Jimmy Bruni, Kevin Estra, Lawrence Van Thor, just to name a few of the drivers that he'll be competing against. So, Adam, in your opinion, where does SVG stack up against all those factory drivers?
Well, Kobe, uh, to see Shane Van Gisbergen running here at Lassar at the 24 Hours of Le Mans, it's a race that he can check off his list saying he's competed at. He's wanted to compete at this race for a long time, but because of the pandemic the last couple of years, he hasn't been able to. And thanks to thanks to the Repco Supercars Championship calendar this year, he can. And Kobe, those drivers you mentioned are some of the best in the world. So SVG has a lot to catch up with them. It's gonna and probably there'll probably be a lot of fans from Australia and New Zealand tuning in to see how Shane Van Gisbergen does in his debut at the 24 Hours of Le Mans.
Yeah, a lot of people are going to be watching Shane Van Gisbergen race at Le Mans for the first time in Australia. And I think Shane Van Gisbergen is certainly right up there with all of those drivers I mentioned. Seems to really be getting along easy with the Ferrari 488 GTE fielded by Raleigh Motorsports. Has some really great co-drivers. Sam Bird, he's very familiar with this Ferrari. Been a factory driver for Ferrari and GT Pro before he decided to fully focus on the Formula E World Championship. And Felipe Fraga, he knows this category pretty well. I think they have a really strong driver lineup. SVG is very fast, and I really see him taking the fight to a lot of those factory pilots, whether they're from Ferrari, Porsche, or Corvette. In the other class, GTM, a big class of 23 cars with Pro Am driver lineups. So, Adam, which GTM driver lineup will you be watching closely this weekend?
Well, one that caught my eye was number 98 Northwest AMR, and there's some really good drivers in that car. Paul Delana from Canada, David Petard from England, and Nicky Team. There's so many good driver lineups in each of these cars. So like I said, this is another class you're going to have to watch out for. There's so much good talent in here. But for me, I'll say the number 98 car, and I can have the number 79 car from WoilerTech Racing, and of course the number 88 Dempsey Proton Racing car from Germany.
And the one car I'm going to be following very closely is the number 85 Ferrari 48 GTE, and that's the all-female driver lineup with the Iron Dames. I've been very impressed with what the Iron Dames have been able to accomplish this weekend. Rahel Frey, Michelle Gotten, and Sarah Bovey, they've been very fast. Even Rahel Frey putting that number 85 Ferrari into the Hyperpole qualifying session, so she has a chance to go out and win the GTM pole. Real great effort there by Rahel Frey, being able to set that fast lap time, and I think it could really be a strong race for the Iron Dames, and it looks like they have the speed in the Ferrari to potentially contend for the GTM class victory this weekend in the 24 Hours of Le Mans. And our colleague Daniel Zeri from from the Girls Behind the Helmet, he's actually on site this weekend at Circuit de la Sar covering the 24 Hours of Le Mans. If you want to follow all the progress this weekend with the Iron Dames, Rahel Fry, Michelle Goddard, and Sarah Bovey, be sure to follow Daniel as he's going to be covering their race specifically. And before we end our Le Mans segment of our program, Adam, I wanted to ask a quick follow up. So, what's your take from the practice sessions we've seen leading up to the Hyperpole qualifying session tomorrow, and what are going to be some of the major keys to winning this race?
Well, Kobe, the practice session, even though it was just practice, you know, the hypercar class looks to be really intense going forward. Um, and a couple major keys I'll be looking out for. You mentioned Toyota Gazoo Racing. They're way down in the point standings. Can they rebound and take it to Team Glickenhaus in the hypercar class? And can Shane Van Gisbergen really do good in his debut at the 24 Hours of Le Mans with his team? He does have sports car experience after running the Liqui Moly Bathurst 12-hour, but it was in a Mercedes and not a Ferrari. So it's going to be interesting to see how he does. And now I'll switch over to some news from another great race that takes place here in the motorsports world. Bathurst 1000. Red Bull M Racing confirmed the driver lineup for the 2022 Bathurst 1000. Starting with the wild card entry, Super Cheap Auto was sponsored with the number 888 Holding Commodore for legendary Supercars driver Craig Lowndes and 888's Super 2 driver Declan Fraser, who will be making his Ripco Supercars Championship debut at Mount Panorama. His more experienced teammate, Lowndes, the 7-time Bathurst 1000 champion, is preparing to make his 29th start in the great race. And Craig Lowndes will become the first ever driver in the Australian Touring Car Championship / Supercars Championship with 300 career starts. Now, the co-drivers in the full season lineup, GT Garth Tander will return to the number 97 as Shane Van Gisbergen's teammate, while Jamie Whincup, the same Jamie Whincup, who has won multiple Bathurst 1000s and multiple Supercars Championship and is currently the race engineer at Red Bull M Racing, returns to the driver's seat of the number 88, and he'll share with regular driver Brock Feeney and the photo you see on the screen, courtesy of Red Bull M Racing. And now I'll throw it over to Kobe as he has some news about a NASCAR team having a very special paint scheme this weekend in Sonoma.
Yeah, for this weekend's NASCAR Cup Series race at Sonoma Raceway, Alex Bowman will be sporting a special paint scheme from Ally. Since the month of June is Pride Month, Ally is going to run this special paint scheme to show their proud allies of the LGBTQ plus community and excited about joining NASCAR in celebrating Pride Month. Ally Chief Marketing Officer and Head of Public Relations, Andrea Bremer, tweeted she's proud to see this scheme run because this is all about making NASCAR a more inclusive place for all, and being the mother of a son in the LGBTQ plus community. Bremer understands the importance of making the world a kinder place, and in her statement, that's what being an ally is all about, and their motto is "Do It Right." Graphic courtesy of Ally Racing. Next, here's Matt White with a grid history update and a special announcement about something called EPI.
Right here, it's that time of the week again where we take a whiz around the motorsports world to bring you up to speed with some of the results that you may have missed over the weekend. And we'll start at Belle Isle, where the final Belle Isle Detroit Grand Prix took place over the weekend. Won in the IndyCar race on Sunday afternoon by a terrific drive from Will Power for Penske. He won that race on Sunday. There was two Indy Lights races, both won by Linus Lundqvist, sweeping the weekend. And on Saturday afternoon, the IMSA Championship were in action. Renger van der Zande and Sebastian Bourdais winning in DPI, and Kyle Kirkwood and Ben Barnicoat winning the GTD section for Lexus. MotoGP were in action at the weekend. They were at Barcelona. Fabio Quartararo getting the victory in the big class. Celestino Vietti, the winner in Moto 2, and Izan Guevara winning in Moto 3. NASCAR action was spread across 2 places this weekend. At Portland, we know, because we were there for the Grid Network. AJ Allmendinger won the Xfinity race on Saturday afternoon. And Saturday at Gateway, Corey Heim got his second career and second win of the season in the Truck Series. And Joey Logano got his second win of the season in the Cup Series at Gateway on the weekend. In Indonesia at Jakarta, Mitch Evans won for Jaguar in the first Formula E race on Indonesian soil. And at Paul Ricard on Saturday night, Davide Rigon, Daniel Serra and Antonio Fuoco won for Ferrari in the 6-hour race as part of the GT World Challenge Europe. It's Le Mans week coming up this weekend, the big one, and we've started our countdown on grid_history on Twitter with today's post of Alan McNish, Stefan Ortelli and Laurent Alliot winning for Porsche on this day back in 1998. And I mentioned Le Mans week because we've got a big announcement now, which will bring you on next week's show. The brand new Grid Endurance Performance Index will make its debut after Le Mans. We've been working on this for the last couple of months, and it's all of the endurance races and championships put together into one big championship like we do with the Grid ranking. World Endurance Championship, IMSA, European Le Mans Series, the Asian Le Mans Series, which has wrapped up. All of the GT World Challenge Championships from around the world, Europe, Australia, America and Asia. Super GT is represented, the Nürburgring Series as well as many others, so and including DTM. So plenty of stuff goes into it. We'll bring you the first top 10 of the year on next week's show after the Le Mans, which of course is the big race of the weekend coming up this weekend. That results, the first EPI update for you and all of the other weekend results to bring you on next week's edition here on Grid Tonight.
Thank you for that, man. We're really excited to kick off the Endurance Performance Index, replacing the Grid World Motorsport League from previous years. And if you want to learn more, be sure to follow Matt White on Twitter at Matt White Racing and Grid History at Grid_History. We're looking forward to bringing you that top 10 to determine the top sports car racing drivers in the world. And next, some more sports car racing news. After deciding to skip the 24 Hours of Le Mans in the first half of the 2022 FI World Endurance Championship season, Peugeot Sport's been testing their new Le Mans hypercar. Now they're ready to race. Peugeot will debut at the next race, the 6 Hours of Monza in Italy, with 2 cars in the driver lineups were announced earlier today. In the number 93 Peugeot 9X8, we'll see Paul di Resta, Mikkel Jensen, and Jean-Eric Vergne, the Frenchman, while the number 94 has Jens Rossiter, Gustavo Meneses, and Loic Duval. Graphic courtesy of Peugeot Sport.
Thank you, Kobe. And now to some news from the world of IndyCar racing. After breaking his hand during a crash at the Indianapolis 500, Colin Milot will return to the driver's seat this weekend at Road America in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. Milot didn't race last weekend at Detroit's Belle Isle Park. The bumpy track surface and demands of driving this track would have been too much for him to handle. Road America's a more high-speed flowing track, but that doesn't require movement with the hands like it does at Belle Isle Park. While Milot was out, Santino Ferrucci drove the number 77 Juncos Hodge Racing Chevrolet at Belle Isle. Now Milot gets to return. Now Milot gets to hop back in the driver's seat. And the photo you see on the screen, courtesy of Juncos Hollinger Racing. Now, we talked about this race earlier in the show, but now it's time for Pick a Winner. We take a look at the graphic you see on the screen. Kobe is at 24. Alex Fleetner jumped me after last weekend's performance. I'm third. Joe Samaniego is fourth with 16, and Ben Schneider is fifth with 14. And it's double points outside if you're outside the top 10. So, with that all being said, all right, Kobe, like at the end of Sunday, who takes home the checkered flag at Circuit de la Sarthe for this year's running of the 24 hours of Le Mans?
Yeah, and for us on Sunday, race gonna be coming to an end right after 9 a.m. Eastern time. So everybody's gonna have to wake up early here and catch the end of Le Mans, or if not, you're gonna be staying up all night watching the finish. But for me, I've been watching the timing sheets, saw the test day, seeing everything going on. But at the end of the day, I still think a Toyota is gonna get it done and win overall at Le Mans and really get their championship headed in the right direction. Because after Le Mans, we only have 3 races to go in the season. It's a really short season. We don't have all the extra races this year, so we're really gonna have a picture of what the championship fight is gonna come down to after this event. So I believe the number 7 Toyota is gonna win this year's 24-hour Le Mans with drivers Mike Conway, Kamui Kobayashi, and Jose Maria Lopez. They're gonna put Sebring behind them, try to build off the momentum from the 6 hours of Spa, and they're gonna get it done at Circuit de la Sarre.
Well, I've got a ways to catch you, Kobe. So I'm gonna go with the number 707 Team Glickenhaus Racing Car. There is a strong driver lineup there, so I'm going against you. And that team Glickenhaus car has 2 Frenchmen, so I want them to. So I'm hoping that they win on home soil. Fabio Quartararo didn't get it done in MotoGP, so hopefully Olivier Pla, among others, will win for Team Glickenhaus Racing.
Yeah, and that's certainly quite a strong driver lineup they have at Glickenhaus, and I believe the number 708 Glickenhaus car. Yeah, you mentioned the 2 Frenchmen, Olivier Pla, Ramon Dumas, and then the other driver, Pippo Durrani. I know on the entry list it says Felipe Durrani, which is his name, but go by Pippo. Pippo Durrani is the defendant IMSA DPI champion. Olivier Pla is his new co-driver in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship, and they've been friends for a while, so they're familiar with each other. And Ramon Dumas really fast, has a lot of experience competing for the overall win. He was one of the Porsche factory drivers, and Porsche had their LMP1 program. So Ramon Dumas, and he also has many years of prototype experience. So that's definitely a strong dark horse lineup. And if Glickenhaus is able to win the 24 Hours of Le Mans, I just want to. I can't imagine the reaction we're going to get from Jim Glickenhaus. I know I know Jim Glickenhaus. He's very blunt and outspoken, and you can't miss him at the track because he's always wearing his cowboy hat wherever he goes, and it would be a massive party if one of Jim Glickenhaus's cars ends up going to victory lane in the 24 hours of Le Mans. And with that said, that's it for tonight's episode of Grit Tonight, our special preview of the 90th running of the 24 hours of Le Mans. And please be sure to like and subscribe to Grit Network. Here on YouTube, you can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. We definitely encourage you to take 5 minutes after our show and consider joining our Patreon Invest in Grit Network to keep us on the air well into the future. Do you want to buy me a coffee? Click the link in the video description below and you can buy a drink for your favorite on our talent here at Grit Network. And big thank you to Edward Hunter from formerly Zone, Amber, and Zachary for buying us a coffee. We greatly appreciate it. Any amount will help us continue growing our motorsports media outlet. Visit Public.com, also known as the stock market social media home. The link below in referral code gives you $5 to invest immediately. And the referral code is GRIDnet. Public.com allows you to connect with your friends. You can make new friends and use tools to learn how to properly invest in the stock market. And looking at our schedule for this week, check out a brand new episode of Women in Motorsports. As I said, Daniel Zuri from Races Girls Behind the Helmet. He'll be at the track this week, following the Iron Dames and the other women racing at Le Mans this week. Really exciting times. And Saturday on the air, Grid Live pre-race at noon Eastern. And then Sunday, Grid Live wrap-up, 90 minutes after the NASCAR Cup Series race at Sonoma Raceway. For Adam Lemerise, I'm Kobe Lambeth from the Podium Finish. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities, such as new companies and potential business partners, and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GRIDnet for your free $5 to invest. Start investing and networking on public.com.